Yeah. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks a lot for joining in today. It's a great pleasure to have you and your time.
Thank you very much. Tell me something. I did not receive any questions from you. So, how would you like to do this? If you could tell me a little bit about yourself and the whole platform, it would be great. I mean, I did go through the whole website of Representative.
Yeah,
Very impressive.
thanks for that. So, I actually wanted this conversation to remain natural and candid. That's the reason why I didn't send the questions. And usually, we don't send the questionnaires to people whom
Okay.
we interview because we just want to have a candid, coffee table conversation with them, which will be
Mm.
about their life, their journeys. And the representative is a news media platform that we started a while back. We were in our college, that's in 2019, and it started as an initiative to educate the youth on various news and publications that used to come into the picture. But the thing was that we wanted to actually run it only as a college project, but then our friends thought that the youth really needs to be developed and informed about what they are reading, and news really didn't help them. I mean, they were looking for something that could simplify news, or could make them understand news in a better way. So that's how the representative developed, and that's how our website also came into existence. Very recently, like in the past few months, we started with our interviews. So we've interviewed various people from various industries, including entrepreneurs or CXO level people or leadership coaches. So we are only doing it with the purpose to inform the millennials about your journey, the other people's journey. How did you all grow up your corporate ladder, and how can they be inspired from your story? So that's the whole and soul of our interview, and that's the purpose why the representative also exists.
And how many subscribers or people do you have on your platform from the student? Like, what's your mix or where do you get students from? I know you are from Narsimonji.
Yeah. So we usually have tie-ups with different colleges, and from their student committee, we get our audience usually, and we just don't have students as our audience, but we have other corporate level people also who join our platform via LinkedIn, and that's how we cater to them also. Apart from that, we also keep on having various partnerships with these college festivals. So from there, we attract majority of our student audience. So that's how we are building up our platform.
Okay, well, congratulations and fabulous work. Just to let you know that my nephew has started at Narsimonji, though he's still sitting in Delhi thanks to COVID.
Yeah.
And not last year, but year before last, I was at Narsimonji speaking at your festival, your some event,
Okay.
Insight, or what is it?
Yeah, yeah, it's Insight. You're correct.
Yes, there was a talk on well-being and wellness and stuff.
Wow. So was it last year? That's in 2019?
You know, I think because of COVID, my brain has kind of lost track of dates.
Okay.
Um, N- NM College was, I'll tell you. Uh, yeah, no. So, no, you had, no, this was, I can't seem to remember. You had another one which was in Think Tank Inception.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there was something, I think 2019 or 20, I forget, thanks to COVID. That's what I'm saying. My brain is a little fuzzy on when did I go there.
Yeah, but it's good to see you visit different colleges also. I read it on your LinkedIn profile that you have also been to SP Jain and various other colleges.
Yep.
So,
SP Gen, ISB, quite IIM Indore. So, yes, I do a lot of
yeah.
students. Yeah.
So, what motivates you to train people, to coach them? How did you develop this interest?
Okay. So what motivates me is the fact that there's potential in everybody. Uh, I think it's just that we all like to be successful. We all like to harness our potential. We all like to do our best, but many of us just don't know how to.
Yeah.
And it's the how to which I went about searching for, uh, which is how I decided what, I mean, once the more you discover that there is a very clear way of doing it, inspired me tremendously to share that with everybody I can.
Okay. So you had a corporate stint before you entered into leadership and coaching. So how did you make that shift, and how was it? Was it easy, or was it difficult for you to make that change for yourself?
So, was it easy? No. Uh, it's the good part is having been in the corporate world, I enjoyed it, learned a lot of about myself, how corporates work, about professionalism, excellence, entrepreneurship. I mean, I was very, very fortunate to work with corporates that gave me a fabulous experience in India and Southeast Asia. However, as I went about moving countries and going through my own shifts and changes in life, I came to a place where corporate life wasn't something that was fitting very well for me, and I started looking for something entrepreneurial to do. Um,
If
and
I may
it's
ask you,
through that.
what was the barrier that came into existence when you say that you didn't fit well in corporate life at some point in time? So, what was that step that took you back?
Okay, so few things. One was that very technical. I used to be part of the tax team, and as I changed countries, the jurisdiction kept changing, and therefore I would always be expected by the next country jurisdiction to go one level down. So it was quite frustrating to go one level up and one level down because I'm changing countries with my husband and my children.
Yeah.
The second part was being a mom and a wife of an expat. Some people felt I didn't need the job, and they were very blunt about it in my face. So I didn't quite enjoy the idea I didn't appreciate the idea of having to prove it that I can work well. I'd already proved it, got recommended, referred, and to be faced up with those kind of in my face comments and challenges uh, was obviously not a pleasant place to be. The second thing was that I think also realizing that as I was at some point, I think I saw myself stagnating in what I was doing. It wasn't stimulating me enough. So it was a combination of many things. And that's when I said I need to look for something completely new and different to reinvent myself. I went about trying many ventures and many things, full passion, all out, threw myself into trying. And as a chartered accountant, I had this chip on my shoulder of that's all I know and can do, because you're qualified for something, you're trained, you worked, you assume that's all you know. What you don't realize is that yes, you have acquired a qualification, but in parallel there are lots of skills we acquire, softer skills we discover about ourselves. We grow as a human being, and that awareness I didn't have. So when I started focusing on what else can I do, I started looking into my passions as well as my skills, as well as my USPs. What is it that, at each job or each juncture I have that's allowed me to excel? What serves me most of? And through that, as I experimented with various ventures, trying out various things, even wanting to do a restaurant at some point, and banking and graphic and interior design, retail, I tried many things. But that's why I said it wasn't easy finding my niche. But I didn't let up. I never gave that up because there was this conviction that there has to be something, I'm missing something. And I think more than the conviction was the need and the desperate desire to do something that made sense to me, where I felt that I fit right, which could work for me. And in terms of my personality, my circumstances, my whole mix of various wish lists that I had. And that's where I somewhere identified leadership development. And through that, I came across coaching. As I trained and went through some courses, I came across coaching, and that's been, then there was no turning back, because I started on my own journey of transformation. So that led to discovering different facets in myself, the author in me, the speaker in me, the leader in me. It just kept, then it was a journey of unfoldment that continued.
Wow. So this means that you just need to find your niche first, identify your purpose and your objective in life, and then things really follow themselves. But what intrigued me was that you said that because you were a mother to your children and you were married, people didn't appreciate that in your corporate life. So was that the only reason that you really didn't want to continue doing that and wanted something of your own?
No, that wasn't. As I said, there was, even the fact that I had the constant change in tax jurisdiction was becoming something which was a bit of a frustration, not because I couldn't learn it, but because of see what happens when you're emotionally and mentally maturing, but if technically you are each time falling a step back, it's hard to fit in with the people, because sometimes it's a challenge because you managerially understand more of, but technically understand less of. So to sit in that space, so it was, I think, a lot of reasons, not just being a woman or a mother, but I think it was just many things that came together and made a lot of sense for me to say, this isn't for me anymore.
Okay. Must be a very tough choice. I can only imagine about it. But
yes, it was. But I think the fact that I went through the phase is the best thing I did for myself, because it gave me a tremendous insight into myself. It also showed me one very valuable lesson. It taught me that we can learn anything we set our hearts to. Considering I dabbled with so many different, passions and disciplines, so many different disciplines. At the end of the day, it was all about putting my heart and soul into it. It wasn't something that I can't do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. And this message is very important, especially for today's youth, that you really need to do something with your heart and soul. Otherwise, you really won't enjoy it for a longer time. But I'm very intrigued to know that how did you start getting clients when you set up something of your own? Who was your first client and how did it all go?
So my first client was, okay, so how did I go about it? When I finished some courses and so on, I decided to set up my own coaching practice, my own at that time it was training and coaching what I was looking to do all of. I actually went about engaging Radhika, a proper branding firm.
Okay.
And through friends, I got connected with a firm called The Republic. I sat with them and I said, I really don't know how to kick off. I want a logo. I wanted to do it right. So I wanted to, because I wanted to work with corporates. So I wanted to go about it very professionally rather than appear like a mom and pop person, shop where maybe it's just a hobby I'm flirting with. I didn't want to do it like a hobby I'm flirting with. I wanted to do it very professionally with all like a full package. So I had they helped me design my presentation backdrop, the whole setup. I designed about 7-8 presentations, a brochure, website, my stationery, logo, company name. I went about it with a full package, and I sat down with a list from CII, the Confederation of Industry, and I wrote emails to, I think, some 100 people.
Yeah.
And that's how I struck lucky somewhere. And the first place I struck lucky with is actually the agency I worked with. They were my first client.
Okay.
So,
okay.
so they itself became my first client. Then, little by little, word of mouth through my previous network of my years of professional work, my corporate experience, I started getting clients, and through these efforts, it's just been then. And I made sure that, because I had a website, everybody knew they could look it up. I constantly, every 3 years, I would update my website to put content out there.
Okay. But after that agency, how did you bag the corporate clients? Like, I saw so many names in your profile, like Citibank, JP Morgan. Oh my God, the list was long. So how did you get them on board?
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. It was, so firstly, when you go through so many ventures of trying everything, the fear of failure somewhere starts disappearing.
Yeah.
And the passion to get out there becomes more than the fear of failure. That, coupled with the fact that I myself was experiencing so much change in myself through my own journey, I would passionately share my story with everybody. Whoever I met in the corporate world or wherever I met, I would share my story and talk about how it is possible to change and recreate your life by listening to your inner voice. When you trust your gut, you can completely reinvent and rework your life. So I would just share that story. And I think the power of that story and the power of the experience is what got me my clients one by one. And somewhere, I guess, I just delivered based on my very high level of intuition as well as very high level of effort. I trained myself relentlessly. I have, because see, reinventing yourself requires you to reskill, upskill constantly.
Yeah.
You can't afford to fade off on that. You can't take that part for granted. So I really went about learning from every place and corner that I could. India that time had absolutely no coaching industry at all.
Okay.
Nothing whatsoever. People in 2006 didn't even know what I was talking about. There would be some who thought I'm talking about just training. There would be others who thought I'm talking about grooming and etiquette.
Yeah.
There would be some who would be wary of me, thinking I'm going to change their image or something. So I had all kinds of responses to what I was doing. But I also had, I think the fact is, when you have so much conviction and in what you're doing, the universe responds.
Yeah.
And that's really, and yeah, I would travel to the US for conferences every 2 years to up my learning, because that was the only place I could actually learn more of and get updated with what's happening in the coaching industry.
Right.
Since it was only much later, after 2010 and 12, that coaching started gaining momentum in India. So if once you're passionate about something and you keep adding, learning, growing, people see that and they respond to that.
That's true. But you said that there was no coaching industry back in 2006, but you also said that you took up some courses to reinvent yourself. So which were those courses that you were talking about?
So I went to Singapore. My first one was Singapore.
Okay.
Before that, I did a course on self transformation by Landmark Education for about a year. But from a very coaching, the formal coaching perspective, I went to Singapore for it. There was nothing here.
Okay.
So I started, yeah.
Yeah, you were saying something.
Prior to that, my first course to really getting into people development was, I dabbled with a bit of figuring out with Dale Carnegie, British Council, and things like that. But those were 2-day courses, which did help, but did not help, not a very, I think I would put it like, I wasn't ready to kickstart a business with it, a practice of my own.
Yeah.
So then I took up a course in image management with London Image Institute, for which I went to the UK. So I did a lot of my training overseas. So I can tell you that you all are extremely fortunate that everything is virtual nowadays, and there's Coursera and edX. But there was nothing like that back then for me.
Yeah, I can imagine the struggle that you went through. And I know when you narrate this story to people, they automatically get drawn towards you, looking at the way you put in efforts in your journey. So it's a testimonial of the fact that if they will be your client, of course, they will also be getting great results because you yourself have put in so much efforts for your own journey. So how is it that you coach people? What is the process in it?
Okay, the first biggest process is respecting the fact that everybody, as I said, has some innate skills in them, strengths in them. And it's really honing in on that. So the more you listen so listening and being present to them is a very big part of it. Okay. Being really present to who they are beyond the words that they are saying, who they are as a human being at the core, and mirroring that back to them. So when you mirror that back to them and give them that completely wide open space to explore their life, they are able to find their own, peel their layers. Because all of us acquire layers without really realizing it. It's not intentional. It just happens subconsciously. You're trying not to be scared. You're trying to do your best. And all that trying, somewhere layers come on all of us. And the more people are able to get back in touch with their core and understand their own limiting beliefs, what is it that's holding them down and back? It's very motivating for them.
Right. But how is it that you structure your coaching? I mean, is there any sessions that you take or a number of days or hours that you dedicate to a client?
Oh, yes, of course. It is, of course, very much so. Each client comes with their own set of goals and aspirations. Each one is looking, so you design it based on obviously how ready are they and how much time they can invest in their own growth at that phase of their life. Some of my clients have given me literally 5 years of their time, and some come for 6 to 9 months. And the more time you get with the person, obviously, the deeper you can go and the more you can help them grow. But typically, I engage with any client either once in 2 weeks or once a month. And it'll be for about an hour, where the conversation is targeted towards some issue or some deeper goal that they're looking to achieve. and going to the deeper layers, to the source of it, to understand the nuances of it, the thoughts behind it, the emotions that are attached to it, what is it that could be barriering them, going as deep and delayering to the extent possible, helping them come to an insight, which then it makes it very easy for them to design a action plan. So I'll tell you, for instance, if I'm working with someone recently who is, man, ambitious is an understatement, okay? Very driven, very ambitious, completely one of those great CEO candidates, CEOs who's grown the business multifold. Now, what happens is, what prevents him from growing further is the fact that he expects everybody in the team to be like him.
Yeah.
Which is not the easiest and possible. Everybody has a different personality, skill, temperament, and the more you're able to become aware and understand each human being for who they are, the more you're able to, make complementing teams and work through from there. So patience is something which he's figured is what he needs to work on, because unless he's patient and he observes his people carefully, as well as gives himself and his people the time, he's going to keep on just widening the gap instead of bridging the gap. So just coming to understanding that his impatience is repeatedly hindering him, it helps him achieve greater results at times, push through. So the same ambition, which is a strength in times of wanting to grow multifold, can also be a hindrance when it is overarched.
Right.
And that is what, when people understand that when your strength, when overarched, becomes a weakness, is when they start realizing that they need to pull back a little bit, such that they can actually add value to everybody and contribute relevantly.
Right. No, this example was quite good to listen to. But I'm assuming, is it on an individual level that you train that person, or was it from the company's end?
I do both. I work with people at an individual as well as from a corporate sponsored way. It can happen either way.
Yeah.
If it is individual, the person comes very much with their own set of needs and requirements and so on, their own journey. If it's corporate sponsored, of course, it's, because the organization believes that the person will truly benefit and grow catapult in their career growth. So this individual that I'm referring to is, and I can tell you, this is not just, there are many such in the corporate world who sometimes get stuck because when their ambition overwhelms their team. And this is corporate sponsored. But so what I do is I also take feedback from the team. Okay. I do take a lot of inputs and people who can help me and give a little more insight into their blind spots, their behaviors, because beyond a point, I am seeing the person in a limited zone.
Yeah.
And conversations like the stakeholder conversations give me a much more all-rounded perspective and of the person.
Right. So if you could cite me an example of this also, like, it will be very interesting to hear about it.
About
a company example that you have coached.
So the previous one was is a company example, but I'll share another one.
Yeah.
I was working with somebody, who, again, one of those highly driven, aggressive persons, but had a very interesting trait where he was extremely accommodating with his team, very difficult with his peers, very quiet with his wife and at home, and extremely creative with his clients. So actually, when I saw that his behavior was in completely four different shades with four different type of people, um, and he was, as a result of it, constantly getting results that were, you know, inconsistent,
Yeah.
because his behavior was so inconsistent,
Right.
and he was always sapped out because of the stress of trying to put on a facade everywhere.
Correct.
So doing these stakeholder conversations really helped me understand that this multifaceted behavior that was going on, multidimensional, and really help him integrate and zone into himself and say that he needed to communicate uh, more openly and directly with where he wanted to, and make an effort in relationships rather than shut them out where he was either stressed out or unable to,
Yeah.
or either he would shut them out or be overly protective. So, trying, these dichotomies were getting quite trying for him. So once he became aware of these dichotomies, it really helped him, and he started making a very big effort in either pulling back or opening up.
Okay. But one thing I understand here is that you help people identify their problems that they are encountering. But how is it that you help them apply the solution in real life? I mean, you can only tell them to do this or that, but how do you ensure that they do it or get it done?
So, firstly, anybody who's on a journey of change has to be motivated and willing.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you can take like, it's a very common saying, you can take a horse to the water, but I
Yeah.
can't make it drink water.
Right.
So that's the first part. The second part is when, as I said, when people see, we have so much about how can I be stress free, how can I be happy, how can I succeed. These conversations are all over. Now, when they discover that what is the root cause for why, when they get an insight into why they're stuck, and they find their action, and they get their own, they'll obviously design their action plan based on their universe, circumstances, effectiveness, and what will work for them and their personality. There is a very high level of motivation to move forward. Yes, there are some who, even after going through it, and will realize that they're not so ready to put in that kind of effort. It is hard work. It is hard work to be vulnerable, to change those hardwired patterns of thinking and behavior. It requires a lot of awareness, and it requires a lot of discipline. So your self-discipline and self-motivation become critical. But as a coach, you set if you're meeting every 2 weeks or 1 month, then there is a follow through, there is a constant acknowledgement of what is going well. So even as the client proceeds through the journey, it's not as if you just allow them to get on, just take action and get on with it. There are two things that happen also. One is a self-assessment of, hey, how's it going? Am I actually seeing positive results?
Yeah.
And when you do try to do things differently, the world notices. The world will wait for the first, people will observe once, twice, thrice. But if they see a consistency for the first 2-3 months, and I tell people, give it the first 2-3 months. Once people start seeing a consistency in change, they will respond because the trust gets reignited.
Right.
As soon as that trust gets reignited, it's a very reaffirming and acknowledging space for the person to feel equally motivated to get back on and keep trying. The second thing is, of course, getting back into not just doing stakeholder conversations in the beginning, but also in the middle. To ask those who are a part of your universe that, are you seeing visible change, and what change are you seeing, and how's it working? So that brings in a huge amount of, it gives that impetus to the person to continue on the path.
Right. But it's so good to see that you are changing people's lives, or you are letting that impact come into the picture, into their lives. So how is it fulfilling for you in each manner, in the sense that how do you feel when you train people?
Huge. It's what has kept me going for the last 15, 16 years, is the very fact that I see people change. I have relationships with my clients going back so many years who value that insight and who've seen their life dramatically change, because some have either risen in the corporate ladder, some have gone on a completely entrepreneurial journey. Some of them have reinvented their familial relationships. So when they experience so much change, it's hugely satisfying for me.
Yeah.
I mean, was it yesterday? I got a WhatsApp message from somebody I was speaking to, and there was something he wanted my opinion on, and I just sent a message back, and we exchanged 2-3 WhatsApp, and in one of the messages I said something very directly, but and I got back a message saying, Ashu, I have tears in my eyes and you've shifted my view completely. He wants to keep that message in front of him every day till it sinks in. Now, that message is enough and more for me.
Yeah.
It's really enough and more.
Wow, it sounds so surreal. I'm sure that you yourself, when you are experiencing such moments, it gives you a validation of your work also, that you are on the right path and you're guiding people also to get onto the right path. So, how is it that ARCA came into place? It just started in 2019. So, how did that idea get to the table?
So, as I told you, Radhika, I'm a person who listens to my intuition big time.
Yeah.
And
you need to tell me how this cycle of intuition also works, because I'm quite perplexed. I don't know how does it actually work in real life.
Okay, so let me ask you, you all started representative because of some instinct that worked.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, what happens is typically we listen to that instinct in gaps. The difference is that I have made an effort to live with my instinct.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a partnership I have. That is, my intuition is my guide, my friend, everything. I work completely in tandem with it. And purely because I have seen how my life has expanded for the better and changed for the better and transformed for the better. So that is validation enough for me.
Yeah.
But back to your question of, sorry, I lost a bit of when you talked about the intuition. Yeah, ARCA. Yeah. ARCA came about because I had been working as a coach for about 2019. So good 13, 14 years by then. And what happened was after having been the ICF founder president for the ICF Mumbai chapter, I got to know obviously a lot of coaches as well as corporates and other NGOs and so on, worked with many. Now, I started getting a request for doing organizational coaching and cultural change. And at that time, what I realized, or I started getting assignments with, requests for assignments I would get, which I was clearly not the right person for them at times, because it's a lot about chemistry and the right fit. So I would find myself passing them over or dropping them, because sometimes at that point in time you're not able to put the team together. And it was such a colossal waste of those opportunities, which I started noticing. And I said, just because I did not have a ready team, because I would tell them I know a lot of coaches, they would say, but do you have a ready team? And I said, no. And I'd never sat back and put in that effort, purely because I saw the whole Mumbai, all the coaches as a ready team for myself.
Yeah.
That's what really triggered saying, hey, no, it's time to actually make an organization and an institution out of it, rather than be informal about it. That was one part of it. So I started collaborating with coaches, but more importantly, Arka, I started collaborating. Now, what over the years, as you've listened to my journey, is that, when you've struggled so much and you've had so many insights and transformations, and there is just so much of knowledge that's been bestowed on you, so much. You owe it to give it back and pass it forward. Okay. You really owe it to pass it forward. And through that, now I have, if you're aware that you may be aware that I've been writing books from the beginning.
Yeah.
So one of the ways, as I was coaching, so the first insight that was really powerful for me was that our inner voice is our true guide to living life. Now, that is actually what started my journey as a coach, and saying, how can I share this secret with the whole world and help people reconnect with their inner voice and live from there? Yeah. So being a coach was one part of doing it for me. Writing the books was the second part of sharing that knowledge for me, as to, that how can I share what I know and with more people, and create an impact with even those who I cannot touch individually. Each book, then the chapter was the third way of doing it. Okay, let's do it with other coaches. So doing it with other coaches. Now, each level led to the next, and 2017 to 19, I took a bit of a step back to write my fourth book, which I launched last year, called I Am Perfection. And in that, as I wrote that book over that 2-year phase, what came about was the entire path to living with happiness. How you can actually conquer your mind, and it is through my story.
Okay.
So I've shared my story, and I've used the entire philosophy of the Vedantas and brought the two together. So I have actually brought about my experiences and learnings from coaching, my entire teachings from Vedantas, as well as my own journey, put everything together, and that's how this book came about. As I came towards the closure of the book in 2019 is when I owned up to the next responsibility of therefore responding to that call of Arka leadership.
Okay.
And saying that all these coaches that I'm trying to put together, it's not really about a business, it's a much larger mission.
Yeah.
And the mission is for all of us to collectively promote authentic living and authentic leadership out there.
Yeah.
And through Arka leadership, I am actually even announcing a 1-year training program to develop authentic leaders. And I've designed a framework. So Arka leadership is effectively going to be a full-fledged institution for developing authentic leaders, promoting authenticity and authentic leadership, and doing everything in that realm, putting all that I've learned out there.
Wow, it's so good to hear that you are on your journey to make it an institution, Because when you say that, the whole definition of the business gets changed, and people do take your business more seriously then.
Yeah, because I think you come to a point where it's no longer limited to me and my business.
Yeah.
It's and when you think of it as an institution or institutionalizing it, it goes beyond you.
Right.
So the whole mindset shifts in terms of how you set it up, how you're trying to develop others, how can you really put processes there, create projects which give an opportunity to actually reach out to more people. So we have quite a few outreach projects we've started. We reach out through podcasts, webinars, articles, business interviews, which we record and put on YouTube. And Radhika, I formally launched the whole team and the projects together in May, June. And in 9 months, we have people from different parts of the world. We have all these projects going on. Every month we try and put something out. So things have just unfolded so rapidly and beautifully. It's phenomenal. And that's why it validates repeatedly and reaffirms my faith in live from within and everything sorts itself out.
Yeah, I think that's a very important message for all of us to learn, because we think that it's only your hard work that will take you places, but it's also your intuition and the way you respond to that intuition that guides you better in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is no shortcut to hard work. I mean, I work obviously very hard to put this together. And considering there are so many verticals and things happening at all times.
Yeah.
In fact, just yesterday, a colleague asked me, "You are all over the place. How do you do this?" And I told him, I said, unless I have freshness happening at all times, I can't work any other way. I have to keep finding new. So the excitement for me of finding new avenues of expression, of finding meeting new people, and constantly even testing my own boundaries is what exhilarates me and keeps me going.
Wow, that's so good to know. But when we talk of student leadership, how would you define that differently from corporate leadership? What sort of differences do you observe when you train students vis-a-vis when you train corporates?
Okay. My son has been the head boy at school. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't see very much difference. You're working again for a higher purpose.
Right.
Yes, it's an unpaid job at that time, and you're not earning money, so profit is not in a way. I think there's a certain part of it where profit is not attached to it. It's the higher vision, of course, is always there. You are always working with other people, and you have to make teams collaborate, and there are always deliverables. The only difference in a corporate world is that you have a lot more processes and infrastructure in place.
Yes.
Which becomes a great support mechanism. As a student, no doubt, your college or your institution or school becomes a great platform to support you. However, I think it has its own set of limitations. But again, the challenges also are therefore in that zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But leadership anywhere teaches you. And it's really anywhere about serving a higher purpose. It is about working collaboratively. It is about newness and growth. So that stays common anywhere. And even as a student, you can create a great impact. Corporates have a student society becomes limited to that university or the student bodies, like you all have gotten in touch with other universities. a corporate becomes more responsible for the families of, afar their uh, circle of responsibility and impact is larger.
Right.
So I think it's certain parallels stay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. I mean, there are a lot of similarities. I mean, at the end of the day, the most common similarity is that both are humans and they would react to the situation in the same way, just the age and the experience.
Completely well said, that everybody is absolutely responding as a human being.
Yeah.
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 And
But
it's
yeah,
the age and experience which differs. That's it.
correct. So, how is it that your business model works at Arca? Since we spoke of some revenues and profits, I just thought of asking you that how is your revenue model at Arca currently?
So there are, okay. As of now, okay, let's say there are various verticals. One is my coaching practice. Second is my books.
Yeah.
The third is the speaking engagements that I do.
Yeah.
As far as this movement for authentic leadership is concerned, that is funded by me, but everybody volunteers their time, including me, on in terms of, so that is a volunteer based movement. Everybody has volunteered their time in making it happen, or their network. So one of the members is working with the Outstanding Speakers Bureau, and she connected us with some speakers from there and got us into that network. So each one is contributing. One of our members has been doing podcasts for the longest time, so he's supporting us in getting our podcast channel started.
Okay.
So each one is supporting us from their expertise, their network, and a couple of them are very strong on research. So they've helped us put together a huge amount of research on that authentic leadership works. How does it work? And how authentic leadership lends to excellence in performance, well-being, happiness, and a person's fulfillment. So putting all of this, so we have people literally passionately volunteering for it.
Wow. So is it a not-for-profit organization when you say that they are volunteering?
It's not. Okay, so I think I wouldn't put it really. I think this movement is within that umbrella and is operating. Yeah, we are not charging for it. So everything goes out. All our content, all our webinars as of now has been, and since we are very, very new, is for free. At some point, I don't know how we'll churn this model. As of now, it's not making any money. It's a funded model, purely because it's a new baby.
Right.
It's a new baby that needs millennials like you to push it out a lot more and get a lot more for us going. Because I would love, we would love to collectively make a difference to the aspiring entrepreneurs and leaders.
Yeah.
And I think it's really about, at some point, the right time.
Right. So how is it that you charge to people or to corporate institutions for your coaching? What's the range in between? What's the range in which you coach them?
I think I shall leave that question.
Just from a coaching industry perspective, wanted to gain your insights as to how much do coaches generally charge?
Very variable, Radhika, because obviously people are at different levels of experience.
Yeah.
And people have very different models of how they want to work with it. Some want to work with quantity, some want to work with quality. It's all niches you may choose. Some may choose to work with mid-levels, some with women, some with CXOs.
Yeah.
Very personal, and therefore models vary, and
Okay.
pricings vary.
Yeah. I could sense that you wouldn't want to answer that question. But yeah, of course, it's confidential. Nobody talks about it, and that's why we don't have it open in Google. Also, when we search about the coaching industry, nobody tells us that how much is the industry all about, or how much coaches really charge. So yeah, it's a very dependable factor, as you said.
It is very dependable. It is very difficult to put a number. So let's put it this way: when somebody starts, they may charge as low as 5,000. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Purely to get a break in with somebody when they are trying to just get their feet wet.
Yeah.
And especially if they are on the younger side, or less experience in terms of whether corporate world or working world or whatever it is. Whereas there are some who may charge 20, and there are those who may charge 2-3 lakhs. So it's very variable. And so it kind of, I think that's what I said, it's niche driven, industry driven, experience, all kinds of things.
Yeah, but this also raises a question in my mind, that how do you build your brand through years and years that you are able to charge what you are able to charge? I mean, what goes into that branding?
It's okay, consistency. One is consistency. The second is being out there. The third is you have to know yourself. So, people obviously see you for, there's a certain, it's like a product, right? You treat yourself like any product, end of the day. Every product has to have a USP that needs to get put out there repeatedly.
Yeah.
Now, if that USP is consistently put out there and delivered, there's a trust value that gets established in it.
Right.
And visibility has to be there. Whether it's in, how you become visible is very much up to you. Whether it's social media, or it is articles, agency, or writing constantly, or through your client networks, or being within the coaching fraternity. So there's a lot of ways to brand yourself. And depending, like there are people who, and all about what is it that you want to focus more on. Now, I have chosen to go towards this whole space of not just staying as a coach doing a business, but even this whole space of becoming the authentic leadership expert and making a movement of it, and training and developing people on that. So that requires a higher use of social media and presence out there. Now, there are others who may be doing coach training programs, and therefore may be more in the coaching fraternity. So it's a very individually need-based approach.
Correct.
But yes, you have to work at it. And it's about knowing what you want your brand to stand for. So I do check in. I do have my agency. I do take feedback from my clients. I take feedback from my colleagues. I take feedback. In fact, 3-4 years ago, I sat with some professionals who are very much in the branding space, to just understand, because at some point, you keep working, and you don't realize how your brand is being perceived or what's unique about it.
Right.
So you have to take a step back and take stock of how is it being perceived, and what is the unique aspect about it that you want to leverage on more of.
Right.
So you got to take these pause, feedback, align again. Sometimes you have to realign. So it's an effort.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you also coach people on branding, because that was such a spot on answer that you gave me.
I don't coach people on branding, but I have invested enough effort in understanding my own brand.
Yeah.
that I think I could, that's my level of experience and exposure I come from.
Yeah, but of course you can open up in vertical wherein you also, train on branding and get more clients for that especially.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and if suppose I am approaching you and I have some problem, so how do you go about it? How do you actually identify the problem? You told me about how you implement the solutions, but how is it that you actually identify what's wrong with the person?
A lot of conversation. As I said, deep listening,
Yeah,
very okay. So in that deep listening, now what happens is, Radhika, when people are, first thing I'll ask is, all when people are talking, there's a lot that you can understand about them.
right.
You're able to hear their strengths, you're able to hear their values, you're able to hear their uh, like the questions you brought about. So what is it that they are questioning in themselves?
Yeah,
Now what happens is that although I can hear it, I will ask the other person to share with me their own strengths. I will
yeah,
ask them to share their values. What is it that is critical to them and non compromisable? I will ask them about their own beliefs and their own issues, because it has to come from the person. Otherwise, there's no buy in.
correct, correct.
Even whatever you're struggling with is has to come from the person. The only thing I may do is add to it.
Yes,
I may add to it and say, I'm listening, I'm hearing something more than you are. Are you seeing that?
yeah,
So it's the mirroring back that I would do then, where I would mirror back either a paradox in the conversation, or rephrase it and show them a pattern in the conversation. So it's really mirroring these kind of things back and taking them and asking them to reflect on what could be the source of it.
right. But I'm just
So
imagining if people would become more self aware and conscious, how would the coaching industry work? Because they wouldn't require any coach to guide them, they would all be self aware. So, are you not having that fear anytime in the mind that what if there are no
oh no,
clients?
I would be in bliss if I saw such a happy world. If I saw a world that was self aware
Yeah,
and lived from that space of self belief, I would be rocking completely. Um, it's a very large world and a very complex world. So if
right.
I can contribute to it in any shape and form, I consider myself very privileged.
Yeah. I mean, that's so good to know. And like you said that after conversing with a person, you get to know a little bit about them. So if you could also tell me what did you sense out of my conversation with you?
You want to put yourself on the spot? Sure. Happy to. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm very, very inspired by your passion and your risk taking, your entire ability to leap into the unknown, take a risk. You don't know me, you've never even done a get to know you call with me, and you've
Yeah,
just dived into a let's flow with it.
yeah.
That calls for huge guts and confidence, and I truly applaud that.
Okay. I
I
thought
think
it
you
would
should
have been.
celebrate.
I thought it would have been taken in a
No, you
different
should
way that I didn't take
celebrate
it.
that.
Yeah.
No, you should celebrate that confidence you have, um, to hold your own and draw out nuggets from a conversation without having had any conversation with me before.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed with that. Um, and you've sustained it. You've managed to reach out to some very high caliber leaders. That speaks volumes for your passion, the brand you all are creating, the professionalism with which you all are going about it. I think it is really impressive. The only thing I would say is I hear trepidation, which is natural, which is even I can tell you as an adult will always trepidation, a little bit of fear and unknown. Oh my God, am I doing it right?
Right.
But I think that is natural. It stays in all of us. And as long as we keep on at it, it all works out.
Correct.
So honestly, you're doing it all good. And the fact that you are trying to connect with other student bodies and, wanting to put your work out there beyond that space, little set of people that you know. So seeing value in it, wanting to put it out there beyond is very wonderful. So you have, okay, so let me tell you this much. I'm envious that you found a higher purpose and cause at such a young age, and I can't tell you how lucky you are.
Oh my God. I wanted to put myself in the spot just to know how your, coaching actually feels like. Because unless you do it with yourself, you never come to know actually, even though you have heard about it a lot. So now I know how you navigate through conversations and just pick up these small little tiny things and derive an analytical piece out of it. I mean, it was I never thought of this, that you would connect the dots so well, that I didn't speak to you before, but now I'm interviewing you, and that could be a great attribute. I never thought of it before.
Yeah, so I connect dots. As I said, it's patterns. I connect dots and I really mirror it back, and it lights up a person.
Right. And lastly, of course, I'm going to connect with you personally also, because I really wish to know that how did you create your own brand and how can I also do that. I'll talk to you a little bit about my personal journey also if you have some time later. But lastly,
I would be delighted to help you, absolutely. And I would really love to see you going places.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see that you are all in for your support for me. So thank you so much for that. And lastly, just wanted to ask you for your advice that you would like to give out to the youth in terms of their focus, their career, and their personal life. How do they juggle in between these?
Okay, so I'll tell you, firstly, I know last year has been difficult and many people have felt very challenged by opportunities.
Yeah.
If there's one big piece of advice I'll give is that the world is filled with opportunities. Never give up. Never think that it's not possible. There's always something out there for all of us.
Yeah.
And big, small, we all have the capacity to contribute and make a difference from our own place.
Right.
The second thing I would say is don't lose that curiosity and capacity to explore fearlessly. Just be an entrepreneur of your life and trust your instinct and explore and keep building on it. Learn. We all have our failures, which is the biggest of leaders will have their setbacks. It is not possible not to have a setback.
Right.
Question is learning from it and getting back on track.
Right.
Being a rubber ball and bouncing back rather than just breaking down. Trusting that capacity in ourselves, that resourcefulness, and take support. I think a lot of students struggle with not wanting their peers to see them as less than. And their peers are their biggest strength because they are the ones who understand their problems the best, actually.
Correct.
Because everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah.
So more, build your network of peers to take support.
Yeah, of course. And people always tell that if you have a great surrounding in your initial years, you tend to become like that later on in your life also. So it's very essential to have a top level charged up peer group.
Yeah. So, and it's not just peer groups. See, I've seen my own children reach out to, a couple of batches above and teachers, so, and professors and so on. Like my elder son is doing his PhD in physics, and he's sometimes reaching out to professors, sometimes peer groups, sometimes couple of batches older. So reach out.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness. Not knowing is not a weakness. There's no way anyone can know everything.
Yeah, but not asking can be a weakness.
Yes, not asking is a weakness. And see, you asked and you got.
Yeah. Very true. That's true. But thanks a lot for your time. I know.
So I often tell people, just ask.
Yeah. I know this hesitation kills curiosity, and when curiosity is died, your life becomes dead. You just don't feel alive anymore.
So well said.
Yeah, because journey would be enjoyable, of course, because it's a journey. But when you reach to the destination, what do? You've already accomplished what you wanted. So it's the curiosity that just will keep on making you travel ahead in life and not just stop after reaching the destination also.
Completely. And, Radhika, the learner stays alive.
Yeah.
And we are students of life and for life. So the learner stays alive.
Right. Thank you so much, Ashu. I mean, I'm so inspired and motivated after speaking with you that I am going to carry these few lines with me for life and going to follow that in my real life also. But let's touch base separately also. Let me know a good time to connect with you. I shall then call you accordingly.
I'll coordinate with you on WhatsApp. We'll do that, and we'll definitely reconnect with you. And absolutely a privilege and a pleasure talking to you. It's been an absolute delight for me. So thank you so very much. And see, this is what gives me fulfillment. Just seeing a bright face, and that's it. My day is done.
Yeah, I love to see how humble you are and other people are, even after achieving so many things in life. It's an inspiration for us younger people to also stay humble and not be arrogant of these small milestones or whatever we achieve.
Well, I wish you all the very, very best with your endeavors and success with the venture you've taken on, Representative. May it grow manifold.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for your wishes.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.